the announcement I'm going to make is a good one. Because what I'm going to tell you is that our lessons during all of August are going to deal with the spiritual growth that comes from a greater understanding of the parables of Jesus. Now it'd be easy to say to yourself, well, shoot, I've heard those parables before. I've read them many times. And they look okay, and they seem okay. But you know what? Most of us need a very deeper appreciation to sort out the challenges and disasters of our life than we presently have. So what I want to establish from the beginning is that there is a deeper help that you can get from your life, and they're here offered by these little simple parables of Jesus. Now, many of us have had a shallowness of thought about the parables, and so they've just become sort of common usage stuff. For example, when you turn to the Bible, you find a parable is defined as, quote, a short narrative making a moral or religious point by comparison with natural or homey things. Therefore, most of us were taught concerning parables that they're just there to show you how to act or feel in a perfect circumstance toward God. Now I want to tell you, there's nothing wrong with that. If you get that far, you've done very well. And it's as good as far as it goes, but it misses a vast area of spiritual awakening that could come to you as a result of really working to understand what it says. As a matter of fact, when you go back to the Greek with the word parable, it was parabola. The meaning is a placing side by side, and it's also true of the Hebrew meaning. So in truth, Jesus was doing a job of creating a new spiritual meaning for the whole of life, beside the common meanings that nearly everybody understood. So you want to find a new way into heaven, basically. Now, the question that often arises, why was Jesus so cryptic? Why in the world didn't he just come out and talk about the self-image, the mind-filtering system, the inner power, the presence and wisdom of God that indwells us all? Why didn't he do that? Well, most of the phrases, my friend, hadn't been invented at that time. And they certainly would not have been understood by the audience that he had. So what I want to tell you is that Jesus was a master psychologist, and he knew that no matter how much he knew, if he didn't transfer what he knew to his listeners in words and ideas that they could understand, then he was just blowing smoke. For the most part, his audiences were made up of pretty simple folks who had little schooling and training in any but the simplest of the crafts. Jesus also knew that he could not make a single soul accept the truth of God. Can't force God down anybody's throat. Oh, he could give them information, and he could show them the results of not doing it, but he had no personal power to change anybody. So one of his jobs was to plant seed into the consciousness of people so that a realization of their good would continue to grow in their lives. And he told a wonderful parable about that, which we will examine closely in a couple of weeks. I did it again. Would you get me one? Another of his jobs was to get people excited about the rewards of gaining this new spiritual meaning. Now, the people had to know not only the value of the new, but they also had to know the price they had to pay to get full value out of the parable. Thank you, dear heart. Now, Jesus told two parables about this, and that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Before I read the parable, however, I want to make one other point. That is that Jesus was cryptic and hid this new spiritual meaning. And he did that because it was the ideal way to keep out of trouble with the religious leaders of the day. After all, those leaders knew that they knew everything about it, and they knew all the laws of God, and all the questions that had been raised had been answered by them, and they had solved the problem. So Jesus knew that the religious leaders were pretty set in their ideas, and that they would not understand that there was a second meaning in a parable other than to illustrate the law, which they themselves already agreed with. And so, as you may have noticed, Jesus avoided getting baited into controversial answers throughout his ministry. He didn't take any stands one way or another about the validity of the teaching or of the law or even particular social practices or abuses. Now, I always assumed that Jesus was a big picture man. And he knew that if he could get the truth penetrated in deep enough in some people's minds and hearts, they would simply let other practices and falseness fall away. So he spoke in parables. And he did that because they brought understanding of our potential to us, because it is only when you as an individual or any other individual recognizes their divine potential are they able to lift themselves into conscious awareness of their oneness with God. And in that way be able to go forth and fulfill God's law for themselves. And I think this is what Jesus had in mind when he was telling his disciples in the last few hours of his life. This is in John, the 16th chapter, beginning with the 12th verse. He says to them, he knows it's the end. He says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me will also do the works I do. And greater works than these will he do, because I go to the Father. Whatever you ask in my name, I will do it, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it." He's saying, hey, listen to what I have told you and go do it. Well, and he seems to be saying also that there's more to truth than the words of the parables that I've shared with you. Look, disciple friends, I've done my part. I've given you a glimpse of the kingdom of heaven. Now it's up to you to recognize the value of what I've said and done, and you got to now go consult with your counselor. Your counselor is the Spirit of truth. You've got to do that to be able to gain further guidance. And from accepting and following that guidance, you'll be able to see all of your godly inheritance just as I was able to do. So you see, what Jesus is giving them is the ultimate lesson in life. How to progress from where you are to where he was. He told two little stories that illustrate the value of allowing the spiritual to grow in the spirit of your consciousness and then accepting it for your own. They're recorded in Matthew, the 13th chapter, the 44th and the 45th verses. One verse apiece. First one, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. The second, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of the fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. The homey part of this is pretty easy to see, isn't it? Yet, who of us has not dreamed that someday we'd come into some great fortune by some stroke of luck? Maybe win the lottery or something like that. I mean, look at all those millions and millions of dollars up there. That could be mine. I don't know. All I have to do is fill in those 5 or 6 or whatever it is numbers that you got. It'll happen. Who of us has not gone to a yard sale and looked among the trinkets and the jewelry and stuff there and thought, boy, maybe they put in a great big diamond in here and I'll be able to get that and take it out and be set for life. Boy, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And it's easy to imagine the joy we would feel if such a thing happened to us. Our problems would be solved. Our life would be a bowl of cherries. Or would it? Because you see, there's a kind of a fly in the ointment here in both the stories. In both cases, the discovery of that which is so greatly to be desired had to be followed by selling all to get that treasure or to get that pearl. And that was true whether the finding of the treasure was by accident or was the result of a lifelong training, searching, and value judgment assessment. Makes no difference. Now, for some of us, this seems like a small price, since we really don't have too much, and a treasure is certainly worth much more than whatever I happen to have at this moment. You know, it is. In fact, you could say that the moral of the story is to always be ready to give up the lesser for the greater. To give up the lesser for the greater. On a purely material level, this sort of thing is apparently easy. On a spiritual level, there are some interesting learning criteria that are made available to us. And now, I'm going to offer these, not so much as a further explanation of the parable story, but rather as a way of looking at life as a whole, so that you can gain total fulfillment in your life today and every day beyond. To gain this total fulfillment, you will of necessity empty yourself of anything that you're carrying in your consciousness that is not fulfilling. Does that make sense? You get rid of the junk so that you have room for the good stuff that's coming in. So these parables offer us a broad guidance on how to let this be in your life. In the first place, both tales take place because a person was curious. In one case, curious enough to take a different route home. Another, curious enough to take note of things around. Curious enough to seek out new sources or avenues for new and greater riches. Looked at from a spiritual view, you all meet this first criteria, don't you? If you hadn't been curious, you wouldn't have walked into this place in the first place. And for some of you, it took some real courage to do it. You see, a lot of people think our church is on a different route. And some of us have found it by accident. Some of us, on the other hand, have come here because we've had a lifelong search for that pearl of great price. And that's what led us to this place. Now, I want to tell you something. Your curiosity doesn't cost you a thing. You can easily listen here and look, and you don't have to invest any part of your life. You can just listen and listen and listen, and you don't have to take anything I say. You don't have to do any of these things that we outline for you to do. So the question comes up, why are so many people unwilling to even look around for themselves? Answer to the question is, I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. But I do know that the quality of curiosity, of wanting to grow spiritually, of being attentive to what's going around and is leading you to the treasures of life. Most of you have already experienced a part of that. The two men in our parables were seeking And although they found by entirely different methods, they both got for themselves a great treasure. Now, by finding a treasure and recognizing its true value, there's a big, wide difference. What if that guy out there in the field had kicked along and he kicked a pot handle? He looked down at it and said, "Oh, that's just an old pot. I won't mess with it." Didn't uncover it at all. Just left it right there. So it's worthless. Why? You realize that he'd have just let it lie there and he would never have known that he missed this great treasure? Or what if the merchant had thought that big is the only basis of a pearl's worth? He would have been open to swindle by anyone. What if you came here and hear me talk about Jesus, and it was the personal cost of accepting Jesus that turned you off? Well, you'd just leave the church, wouldn't you? I mean, what good is this place if it doesn't give me anything I want? You'd walk away saying, "Oh, same old superstitious junk that I've found in all the other churches I've ever attended." And so you would miss the pleasure and the treasure of Jesus as the master, psychologist, and demonstrator of our oneness with God. Now, what if you came here and looked around and you found only this small room? Not the great cavern that you find in the monster churches of today. So you might say, "Well, look at here, this is just a small group and it's not big enough, and it can't be the right place to find the pearl of great price." Then I guess you just missed the joy of prospering, healing, and harmony that many others have found here over the years. So the parables teach us that it is not enough to just seek new avenues for spiritual enrichment, but to develop an awareness of the value of everything that you come into contact with, and to be ready to dig into it so that you might discover deeper than just the surface, and so that you might have your mind free from bias in that discovery. There's no way that I can emphasize the value of the third criteria that we find in these parables. And it may come as a surprise to you. The third value is keep your discovery to yourself. I've known people that came into the church, said, "Boy, how do you look at all of this?" And they went right out and they went home and they started talking to their wife and to their mother and their father and the neighbors across the street and everybody they could find. "Boy, look, I just found the truth." And they turned around and said, "You nuthead. What in the world are you talking about? Why, you know that's blasphemous. Jesus himself would condemn you for ever saying words like that. Give it up." And so they did. They did. So you got to keep your discovery to yourself until you know that it is truly your possession, that you've paid the price for it, that you're ready to take it out and live that in your life. So the man in the field, you remember, he covered his treasure up and came back for it later after he had paid for it. The field. And the merchant kept his knowledge of the value of the pearl to himself. It was only when the treasure and the pearl were securely theirs by right of purchase did they make their new positions public. A right of purchase means you buy what it is that's here for sale. The truth. You possess it. It becomes yours. And that brings me to the final criteria which also might not be so apparent, and that is, don't try to steal the treasure. Let me tell you, it can never be yours that way. Notice in both of these parables, there was a price to be paid for the treasure and the pearl. And what was that price? Quote, then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. And the merchant, quote, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Now, I don't want to belabor this right now, but the spiritual point of view says that the kingdom of God, which is the treasure and the pearl of great price, the kingdom of God is within you, but it is not truly yours to realize and utilize until you're willing to sell off any ideas that you have that are less than this single idea of perfect good. That means that, friends, every day we need to do as much as we can to clear our consciousness of anything that's clearly contrary to good. That means anything that's unlike the attributes of God. And in the process, you have to develop such an eye for value that you're able even to invest all of the other that had considered a value in life previously in this one treasure. To sell all you have doesn't mean that you throw away what you've accumulated in life. Sometimes people think that's what it means, that you got to be, get rid of everything. You're going to become a poor beggar on the street or something. No, that's not what it means. What it does mean is that you're willing to convert all that into the coin of the realm. Now, some of a lot of your your savings. I started to say, I wanted to say life, but I said little. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, little savings or lives, most of us is about the same, I guess. But we have most of our savings in money, which is the coin of our realm. Now, other of it is in other forms, like houses, cars, rings, stocks, bonds, and so forth. So you don't want to consider those in there. What you want to consider is the universal exchange medium represented as the coin of the realm, and in fact is wisdom. It is wisdom, pure wisdom. The cars, the houses, and so forth would represent good mixed with some false ideas, with fear and greed and anxiety. Eventually you may want to say, I don't own those anymore. No. You say, they don't own me anymore, which is better way. Now, so people to enter this kingdom of God, you want to sell off all of the false ideas, the fears, the greed, and so forth, and what they're attached to, and then convert them to true wisdom. You see, there's always enough to purchase the field where the treasure is and the pearl of great price. And by giving up the lesser for the greater, you're entering into the awareness of your oneness with God, that you're entering into the kingdom of God. For this is what you have truly sought to do. And as you are doing it, you find that the former things are gone or multiplied more and more, because more and more good will be added unto you. So this is the criteria for being rich in the world. I'll give you 4 of them, 4 little statements. 1, seek to see the value in everything about you, and do not fear to seek more in areas of life in which you've never before explored. Be curious. 2, when you find even the hint of great treasure, dig into it deeply. Find out all you can about its application and effect in your life. 3, until you're sure in your heart that the treasures of God are your secure possession, tell no one. Instead, seek to learn all you can about how you can come into the possession of this in a true sense. And 4, through denial and affirmation, and the development of more wise value systems, remove from your life any concept that would keep you from total fulfillment and attainment of the kingdom of God. Oh, there's more to be said. Well, actually, what there is to be said is that this is the true fight against the ghosts of false belief, which we'll want to call the lesser. So you want to kill that false belief. And when you kill the false belief, those ghosts are going to disappear. All those things that used to carry with them fear, guilt, shame, all that stuff, they disappear. So what we're involved with here is the quest for the reality of truth. And I invite you to drink of this pure water of life so that all of those things can be yours. In the name of the Christ. Amen.